A very warm welcome to a special 200th edition of the Red and Blue Review podcast with me, Ian Noble, hosting this evening with a very different opening 10 minutes or so to the show before we get into the small matter of looking back on events in North London yesterday. Please do, as always, like us across our social media platforms and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an episode. I think it's fair to say that the mood around SE25 is much better than it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. And despite losing away to Spurs, there were many positives to take forward and to chat through on tonight's pod. And joining me this evening is one Nicholas Philpott, who is responsible, of course, for this podcast. So, Nick, very good evening to you. How are you, my friend? I saw you yesterday, so it wasn't a million years ago, of course.
Good evening, Ian. Thank you. And good evening to everybody else that's out there. Great to see you, Yesy, mate. What a magnificent stadium that is, isn't it? You can't be anything else but impressed with it.
I was totally impressed by it. That was pretty good selfie skills, that, wasn't it, the four of us? I needed long arms to
got us all in there. The lovely Lindsay, of course, who's sadly can't be with us tonight because she's working. But I know we've got plenty of other faces going to be popping up during the show.
Yeah, she's on next week, apparently, so that's good. We'll catch up with her next week. And, of course, Paul Gear was with us in that photo, and he's joining us shortly. But, Nick, I'm going to hand these first 10 minutes over to you, my friend. So there we go. Away you go.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, out in Facebook land or YouTube land, wherever you're watching this show tonight, it is quite a monumental evening for us. And I'm actually not on the show this evening. Ian's hosting the show. I've got guests here at home. But I couldn't let this 200th appearance go without saying a few words about what has happened, how it's developed, and how it's grown over the course. Do you know what? I don't know how many years it is, because most of you will remember that Joe and I used to be on Holmesdale Radio when it was a thing back in the day. And from that, we went on our own separate way. We linked up for a little while with Ben Allen and John Ellicott on Red and Blue News, by which time the wonderful Lucy joined us. We were with Sean Feeney as well. These will all be names that are all connected with the Palace, and you'll all be familiar with. And then we decided to branch out on our own. Now, Joe and I did many shows on the other platform before it went its own separate way, and I think they're called something else these days. I can't even remember what they're called now, but they're still in existence. But Joe and I decided to go our own separate way and started to involve other people within the podcast. We were lucky enough at the time to have the lovely Lucy, who's going to make an appearance in a minute. Okay, and she was one of our very first producers when we set up Red and Blue Review. And I always maintain to this day that Lucy Usher is our backbone. Without Lucy Usher on our podcast, frankly, I don't want to do it anymore. And I know the feeling's mutual. I know it is. But then, of course, Joe and I continued, and it started to gather its own pace a little bit. And we started getting other people involved. Then we needed another producer and a talented musician called Greg Ellis. We got in contact with Greg one day. Oh, and as if by magic, up he pops. And again, between him and Lucy, things started to develop. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, we just want to, 30 or 40 people watching us a night, and maybe a few people doing a download on the old Be Live platform that we were on at the time, which it had in itself had some technical issues. And then I don't know how it actually came about, but these two decided that they wanted a sabbatical, and so they invited somebody called Nigel Croucher to the team. And folks, and here he comes. And with these three, without these three, there is no podcast. I may be the face of the podcast. I may be the name that everybody knows on the podcast. However, I can't do it without these three. Without these three, Ian can't host. I can't host. And as time grew on, it developed, and we were lucky enough to get so many different talented people. These are people, you've got to realise, we're only a small fan base. We're only 25,000 people. And all of a sudden, our team has grown exponentially to all these wonderfully talented people. This is all unscripted, by the way. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. Okay. And they're going to start, some of these people are going to start popping up on your screen in any second now. And I can't go any further without saying something in particular about Mr. Noble. Okay, Mr. Noble and I have known each other for a few years. We've been to a few away games together. Our connection is through Grant Saunders, of course. Our friendship is through Grant Saunders. He cost me a very, very expensive coat one day on the train away from Sheffield. You all know the story, but I'm still blaming him. I don't care what he said. And ladies and gentlemen, out of all the people that have joined the show over the years, it is so... Yeah, it puts a lot. You put a lot of work into getting one of these shows together. Okay, in the background, pre-show, all on a Sunday. We give up our Sundays to get the notes ready and get a running order together. And I am very blessed to have in the background as a more than able deputy, better than me. Most of you would probably say, Ian Noble. And thank you so much for everything you do for the show, Ian, because you are fantastic at what you do, and I'm so chuffed to have you as part of the team. And then we start going even further. Paul Gear, who I know through the same group of people, who's known for his stats and everything else. Paul, we need to get some more stats on the show. I think the show needs some of your talent more and more. He's joined us, and he's got a wealth of knowledge. He's forgotten more about Crystal Palace Football Club than this dummy sitting here talking to you now ever will. Okay. And again, the same group of people. Fergus Tidd joined us, okay? And his love and his passion for the club speaks no bounds. I'm telling you now, we are absolutely chuffed. Tim Richards first joined us as our New Zealand correspondent all those many moons ago. Him and his lovely wife Wendy finally moved back to the UK, and he's still part of us. And now even his role is changing because we are very blessed to have him as part of the team as our fans advisory board representative. Okay, but because of these connections with all these people, we've also been very lucky to have a new association, relatively probably a couple of years old now, with the DSA, the Disabled Supporters Association. The gorgeous Lindsay. Lynn's lovely to spend some time with you yesterday. Great to see you. I'm just sorry that you can't be with us tonight. I know you're working, so you are excused. And there she is on your screen now. That was taken at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium yesterday, pre-game. That's why I've been smiling, you can see. If you'd taken the same photograph about 3 hours later, it would have been a different picture. And of course, Bruce is with us tonight, who's also on the DSA. Bruce, congratulations to everything you do on the DSA. And let me tell you now, all the time I've got a breath in my body, there is an association with the Red and Blue Review. If anything the DSA ever need, okay, any support they ever need, you just pick up the phone to any of us, okay, and you know that you've got a seat on our panel whenever you need it. And Lindsay knows that as well. And of course, you're now representing the DSA on the FAB committee. So congratulations to you on that appointment. But even more important than all of that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to be whipping you, but I need to get this off my chest. There's somebody else in the background who's not with us tonight because he's currently under medical treatment in hospital. Is Joe Holyoke. Joe Holyoke, I've always described as my wingman. Okay, we set this up many moons ago. Okay, we thought we'd probably do, I don't know, 20 or 30 shows, call it a day. And also Ian Lyons. Ian Lyons was very, very important in setting us up in the background and helping, guiding us. In fact, it was actually Ian Lyons' decision, okay, everything's been a committee decision, but it was his suggestion that we pulled away from Red and Blue News. We went with our own separate identity because we were on Red and Blue News for a long time. So we parted company with John Ellicott and Ben Allen. Those of you may remember Ben Allen. And we decided to set up our own. And this is what became. And this is what became of it. It's then grown and grown and grown. Of course, we've also got people that aren't on here tonight. Somebody just asked in the background, is Gel okay? Gel is fine. He's got dodgy knees. For those that you know him well, the poor old bugger's got dodgy knees. I think they're going to have to replace one of them soon. Apart from that, he's fine, but thank you for asking. Of course, and we've grown and grown. There's more people that I haven't mentioned on there. Namely, one of them, of course, is our record appearance holder, Jim Cannon. Jim, I thought Jim was going to be with us actually at 8 o'clock, but he hasn't joined us yet. So Jim is also a part of the team. We've had John Solarco. We've had the Steve Coppell interviews. I mean, the Steve Coppell interviews that Ian did were just absolutely, and Jill did, were just absolutely. He sat at this dining table, Steve Coppell. For those of you who haven't seen it, there are 4 short shows. I think they're 20-minute shows with Steve Coppell in it. Yeah, go on, Nige. You're muted, Nige.
You said there are 5 of them.
There's 5, is there? Right, okay. So there's 5 short shows. If you haven't seen the Steve Coppell interviews, these are probably now, I don't know, 2 or 3 years old. He sat in that chair on my dining table, and for those that you not familiar with it, everybody that knows Steve Coppell knows that he's what I would describe as a monosyllabic person. He doesn't say very much. He doesn't say an awful lot. So he sat there, and we started the questions about Tranmere Rovers. And I think it was, Ian, you were here 2 hours later.
Yeah. Now, listen, Nick, that was a real privilege for me to visit your house that day and meet Steve Coppell. I was in awe of him, but he's such a humble guy that you quickly lose that sense of awe, if you like, and just talk to him like, equal as a Palace fan. And we went through his career, didn't we, in the 5 episodes? We talked about Tranmere. We talked about joining Man United, the big move he had. We talked about England. We talked about his injury, how he had to quit the game early, and how he joined Palace as a young manager and the success he had at Palace. And I just tell you this story, little anecdote, is that in 1990, I had a young family. And because the Liverpool semi-final was on TV, it was the first ever FA Cup semi-final was broadcast live on terrestrial television. I had a young family. I didn't give us a prayer against Liverpool. I really didn't. So a couple of my mates and I, who I still sit with at home games, Paul Farley and Dave Taylor, we decided that we were going to watch it on the telly. So we went round Dave Taylor's house and we got the beers in and we watched it on the telly. And of course, we were over the moon. I smashed Dave Taylor's light shade. He had a lampshade in the middle of his living room. I smashed it to pieces when the 3rd goal went in for the equaliser. And the reason I'm telling you this story now is that I had the opportunity to apologise to Steve Coppell personally for not having the faith in him and the team to get us to Wembley. Of course, I went to both finals, but I'll regret to the day I die that I wasn't at Villa Park that day. So that's my little Steve Coppell story. Thanks for indulging me and let me tell that.
No problem at all. And so those of you who haven't seen that on YouTube, please go and look for it. Okay. We also did John Solarco and Greg Ellis. I'm delighted to say he produced that for us. He actually interviewed John Solarco. We were in a bar in Purley or something when we did that. I filmed it and you interviewed him. That was a great interview as well.
Yeah, that's right. That was it's a few years ago now, and just having the ability to meet these guys that have played for the team you support, all these years later. It was. I remember. I just felt like a kid in a sweet shop. Really, it was. It was a really lovely opportunity, and John was really, really generous with his time. He was. He was a very nice guy, and couldn't do enough for us. And I think back then as well. I don't think that was too far after we'd sort of moved on from Red and Blue News. So we were really sort of fledgling at that point. So to have that interview, that was a really big coup at the time.
And I tell you, ladies and gentlemen, out in Facebook land, the reason I knew that I was surrounding myself with this talent, was because of that interview. I didn't do anything in preparation. All I did is I held the camera for that interview. Greg prepared it. Greg wrote the questions for it. Greg produced it. He got it released. I did nothing, as per normal. I was just literally just behind the camera. So I knew then that I was surrounding myself with some fantastic talent, and that talent has grown and grown and grown. I'm going to shut up in a second. I just wanted to finish off by saying, and I'm going to hand over to Lucy and Greg in a minute, because obviously they were and Nige were the originators here. But don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, without you guys out in Facebook land and out in YouTube land, the listeners, the viewers, whatever you want to be called, there is no show. And the show's viewing figures have gone up and up and up. And you can only see a little number on the top of your screen. But don't forget, you're only watching it on one platform. If Lucy's producing it, it goes out slightly differently. If Nigel's producing it, it goes out slightly differently. But our viewing figures have grown. We've got thousands of people watching this on either on a podcast or a bloody YouTube download. I don't care what I'm like with my technology. I have no idea. So a massive thank you to each and every one of you that has ever contributed, written a comment, viewed, or been involved in Red and Blue Review, because this show is not for us. Okay, this is not for our names or anything like that. This is for you. We give up our Sunday evenings solely for you. So from the bottom of my heart, and I know the team's heart, because they are the team. They're not my team. They're the team. I can't do it without them. Okay, I thank you very much. Luce and Greg, I wonder if I might hand over to you before I jump off and leave Ian in a bit of peace and quiet to sum up a few words.
Yeah, sure. I'll keep it brief. But I think it's been the most incredible wild ride. I thought I wasn't too sure what I was letting myself in for, but I've made the most incredible friendships, and I just want to thank each and every one that joins the shows, likes the shows, listens to the podcast, likes it on YouTube, shares the show, tells their friends about it. Because like the friendships that we've all kind of made, we went through a pandemic where we kept doing the quizzes just so we all had a sort of a place to kind of meet online and sort of say hello. It's been really valuable. And, you know, I certainly treasure it. I love it when I don't get to Sellers Park as much as I'd like, but when I do go there and I bump into George and you know, it's like we're best friends, and you know, we've only met like a handful of times, but we've had all these weekends online together as a community, and I think that's really special. And you know, I treasure each and every one of you. So thank you.
Well done and well said, Lucy. And of course, not forgetting people like Tom Clark Samuel running our Instagram account and everything else. He's just, you know, more talent in the background. Okay, but massive part. I was going to say team. I don't know if team's the right word. I think family. Lucy just said we are a community. We are a family on the Red and Blue Review. If any of you got any issues, you come to us. You talk to us. Greg, a few words.
I first started watching Nick and Jell. It was a Facebook Live program, I guess, in its earliest format as I remember it. And I just remember watching these two guys literally sat on the sofa, and I was watching. I remember saying to my girlfriend, I said, I just watched this thing about Palace. I don't know I watched it. I don't know why I watched it, because it's just two guys talking football, but I couldn't stop watching it. And it stuck with me for a few days. And I just thought, this is such a good idea. And I just kept watching it. And then there was an advert or a message or a post on Facebook that said, you know, we need people to sort of help out with the show. And this is before I had children. So I just thought, yeah, I'm going to get involved in this. This could be great. This could be really good. And in the early days, you know, we had to go through a lot of hoops, a lot of things we needed to learn about actually what is it it's going to be. Like we didn't really have any idea of how we were going to do it. And it grew and people got involved. And in the early days, I had to appear on a lot of the shows because there wasn't anybody else. So I was reconnecting my love of Palace and also venturing into doing this, which was, you know, uncharted territory. And to see it what it is now to those few years, I think it's actually 7 years that I've known Nick now. And I haven't even met everybody in person on the team now. I've met the majority, but for 7 years this has been going. To be honest, I didn't think it'd probably go for more than a season.
Me too.
You know, my expectations, there weren't really any. But you know, Lucy put it in, you know, far more succinctly and far better than I ever will. But you know, to see what this show is now and what it means to me. And to all you guys, you know, there's 109 people watching now. 7 years ago, that was probably about 20 or 30 people. I know it was because I used to write all the metrics down and keep it in a nerdy spreadsheet that only I ever really paid any attention to. There's 105 people, or 109 people, sorry, watching the show. And really, I just want to just shout out like a few people I know that have been there pretty much since the beginning. It's you know, it's good people like John Knox, George Awagwu, Paul Bristow, Claire Davis. You know, I know there's many, many more. But when I scroll through the names in the comment section, these are genuinely people that have been with us week in, week out over this entire time. And I'm really grateful for that, you know. And if you're getting something out of it, then we're doing a nice thing or a good thing, you know. Win, lose or draw, we're always going to support Palace, and I really just hope that the show continues and goes from strength to strength. I'll never really forget the giddy excitement of when we had a New Zealand correspondent. I mean, we still technically do have a New Zealand correspondent, just happens to live back in England now. But, we're fusing the fact that we were able to get people across different time zones. That was like a big thing, that we'd managed to do. So all these little things that, these are little things that we thought of, that we were trying to improve the show. And yeah, to have what we have now, I really treasure it, and I'm very grateful to everyone. And I'm going to single out Nick and Gel, really, I call them the originators, or the ultras, whatever you want. They've really put a lot of time into this. I know how much effort Nick goes into, with preparing these shows. It takes a lot of time, and after doing it for this amount of time now, you're a dab hand at it. And Ian, having you on board as well, such a lovely fella, and I really enjoy the show. These make my journeys into work, with the podcast, all the better for it. And I just want to say congratulations to everybody, and I'll retire now and let you get on with the show.
Yeah, me too. I'm also going to finish off, Ian. I'm just going to finish off by saying, and we are going worldwide. Andy Hooper is there in the chat right now. He said it's global, guys. Keep it going. Facebook user saying, long may the show continue. Well, guys, I will commit to you that all the time I've got a breath in my aging body, as long as we can, we will. I thank you for giving up your early part of your show, Ian, and I'm going to hand over to you now and say, on behalf of all of us, I really appreciate each and every one of you on screen. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Nick, very much indeed. And I think we're going to say goodbye to Nick and Lucy and Greg and Nige, our producer guy. Is that right? Oh, I don't know. It's a bit like Celebrity Squares, this. We're just not sure what's going to happen next. Crazy. Nick didn't mention Aaron, of course, from Melbourne, Australia. We didn't mention Aaron. There's a lovely guy, a young guy called Gavin, who lives in the States. He's been over in the UK for quite a bit, and he's a Palace fan. We know him quite well. Comes to the games when he can. In the UK, we'll have to get him on live from the US. Anyone else around the world watching wants to come on, if you're in a different country, you've got a good chance of being on the show. So we're left with the five of us. Guys, we've got to. How do we follow that? It's bonkers, isn't it? It's. I was blushing a lot of the time, but it was great to hear. So a very good evening to you, Paul Gear. I saw you yesterday. Did you get home all right?
Yeah, no, we had a nice long wait in the tube queue, as we both experienced, Ian. Saw some quality stewarding of lines and trying to get people into a packed area. But no, it wasn't pouring with rain like it was last year on the walk back after a defeat. So, yeah, not the end of the world. Good
stuff. And Tim Richards, good evening to you. Someone put a comment on the chat earlier, which made me smile. With all your connections, you're still sitting in a broom cupboard or something. How do you respond to that, mate?
A very expensive select broom cupboard, may I say. Evening. Hello, everyone.
Good stuff. Ferg, how are you, mate? Long time no see. I haven't been for a drink with you for over a week.
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, Ian. I a bit gutted. I've missed the game yesterday, but I had some family commitments. But the last 2 or 3 times I've been there, we've not seen the score. We normally get battered. So, and of course, it happens again.
It did happen.
But yeah, all good.
It did happen again, but we saw a goal, and a very good goal it was as well. And we'll come to that a little bit later. Yeah. Bruce, nice to have you with us again, my friend. You've been on the show before, of course. So welcome. How are you?
Yes, thank you very much. And well, what the guys were saying about, this is a family. It's like a drug. I stumbled across this, and now, I can't stop. And you do make friends. In fact, so much so that if you remember Ian last season at Tottenham, if I hadn't met you, you might not have picked me up off the floor on the way out.
Yes, that's right. I'd forgotten momentarily about that. Yeah, at the Tottenham last season, I came out of the ground, or out of the stadium on the concourse, and you were lying on the floor. So, what happened there? Yeah. So I'd forgotten about that. I did my Good Samaritan bit, but you were okay. You dusted yourself.
Yeah, I was fine.
Yeah. Good.
Well, I was only parked across the road, so I didn't have to worry about Seven Sisters.
Yeah, fair enough. Paul,
it must be something about Spurs, Ian, because you had to pick someone up yesterday, didn't you?
Oh, I did, yeah. On the way, we're walking up the Seven Sisters Road to the game, and this bloke on one of these Boris bike things came hurtling off it onto the pavement. It went flying, and it was wet. And if he'd gone the other way, seriously, he would have gone under a car. But he came onto the pavement, and I picked his water bottle up and said, "How are you, mate? You're right." And he got up and he got back on his bike and carried on. But it was mad. Fergus, have you fallen off a bike? Is that what you're going to tell us?
No, I was just going to say people complain about cellars, but isn't Tottenham's ground a pain in the backside to get to?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
One of those grounds. Yeah.
It is awful. In fact, a mate of mine, I say a mate, he's actually my accountant, and he's a Brighton fan, and he's a big Brighton fan, proper Brighton fan, not a plastic. And he put a comment on my Facebook post saying it's a bugger of a ground to get in and out of, isn't it? And he's right, of course. You know, it's a good way of putting it. It's a horrible place to get to, but we managed it yesterday just about. But the good thing is it didn't rain on the way there or the way back. So we're going to get on and talk about the game because these guys don't want to hear us talking about stuff like this. It's boring for them. I'm surprised we've still got 109 watching. I have no idea. So let's talk about the game. Let's get into the game, and we're just going to play this by ear. So Nigel, I hope we've got a team. There we are. So, Paul, you were with me. So, talk us through the lineup and the change that we saw, please, if you would.
Well, Zay, to start before the game, team came out. We were all a bit debating who was going to play. You had a case for a few different scenarios yesterday. You could stick with the winning team and keep Edouard in. You could put França in because he came on last week, had a good impact, did a bit more probably than Edouard. Or you could play Eze, who was back available because he's basically the better of the three players. So I think no one can really complain when we bring Eberechi Eze. If he's fit, he plays in our team, doesn't he? So the rest of the team was as the week before, who'd done very well. So I don't think anyone had any sort of complaints about that. We knew the formation from the last week as well. So it was as strong as we could have been yesterday, really.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. And Ferg, you watched the game from a distance, but what were your initial thoughts about the opening exchanges?
Well, I mean, for the majority of the first half, Spurs had the ball and we were chasing. It looked like we'd gone for that counter-attack. So they had a lot of possession. It was just all around, passing it around sort of in their own half across the pitch, down the wings, but without really causing us any issues. It was okay. I mean, I guess Eze needed to come in. That was an obvious change. I know we'll get onto it a little bit later, but I do think Edouard's better starting than coming on as a sub because he's just there's no impact when he comes on. It's almost like a wasted substitute in my view.
Okay, fair enough. Tim, thoughts about the lineup and how we started the game?
Yeah, I think the lineup was kind of as we expected. I think we all knew what was going to be like playing Spurs at Spurs. But to be fair, he set the team up and they pressed well. And the thing that pleased me about it was that when we were pressing, it wasn't just one player pressing. You could see we were working in batches like 2s and 3s, pressing up. And so really, we weren't the most attacking, but I was quite happy with the way it went. I think what it does show is the glaring weakness for us still is up front, but that's another matter.
Yeah, and there were moments that we had in that first half. Munoz, I think from right back was a bit of a handful. To be fair, down the flank, he won a free kick. Ayew takes the free kick, and from where we were sitting, it was up the other end. You couldn't really see, but Mateta got a shot in, and it was blocked. It was decent half effort on goal, really. Decent half chance. The opening moment that was of note for them, I suppose, was when Tino Werner was through on goal, 1-on-1. Actually, it was Eberechi Eze that lost the ball. He does that occasionally. He tries to be a bit too clever sometimes, beat one man too many, and he lost the ball. How well did Sam Johnson do with the save, Bruce?
Oh, phenomenal. Watching it on the box, you thought it was a goal straight away. You thought this is it, 1-0 down. But Sam, made absolute quality save. In fact, he hit the deck quite early, and then managed to spring up and stretch himself to stop Werner from putting it in the back of the net. So yeah, really impressive save. Really impressive.
Yeah, and and certainly the away support made their feelings felt for Sam yesterday. Their love for him with the Super Sam Johnson goal song, rather Super Sam Johnson song. So that was good to see him back between the sticks, and I think he'll keep his place now for the rest of the season. The way things have gone, so we go in 0-0 at half time, and probably fairly comfortable. And Paul, you're happy with the first half overall. You probably would have taken that, wouldn't you, before the game?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've said before how we don't do well at Spurs traditionally, and let's be honest, they're chasing the top Champions League sort of spots. They're a good team. They've gone very attacking this year. So to keep a clean sheet against them in the first half and to hold them at bay, like I say, other than the Timo Werner chance, they didn't really create too much. We were containing them. So yeah, we couldn't really be too unhappy half time situation.
Yeah, and there was one final moment in the first half. I've got in my notes here that say as they fed the ball into Munoz, he was almost in, and then Wharton fed Ayew, and he had a shot, and it was well saved, but he would have been offside anyway. It was, he was clearly offside, but the fact that he got his shot away, and he got it away well, was a positive, I suppose. Second half then, and I think Spurs got more into as the game grew. Tottenham got into the game more. Would you concur with that, Paul?
Yeah, well, clearly, yeah. I think it's an element of two things. Tottenham, obviously, they made a couple of changes, attacking changes. They brought Brennan Johnson on, who's a very fast winger, who's had a few impacts on them recently in games when they've turned games around.
Who did he replace then?
He came on for Bentancur, so they took off a sort of holding midfield and brought on a winger, which was obviously designed to start attacking us a bit more. And I think Spurs obviously grew into the game. I think we'll come on to it a bit more. It's probably more to do with our fitness and fading away a bit. And I think it's, as we said up front, once Mateta tires, we need to change him, because obviously the more he doesn't affect the game or hold the ball, the more it just keeps coming back at us, and the more pressure we get on and on and on, you're going to concede. And then obviously, we'll come on to how we conceded shortly as well. But yeah, Spurs. It was. Yeah, they were always going to start to pressure us more.
Okay. Paul Bristow says we could do with a left-sided Munoz. Torrek Mitchell had no idea what to do when he found himself one-on-one with a Spurs defender. Yeah, it's a fair enough comment, I think, from Paul there. I think Torrek has got to, he's been used to playing left-back in a back four. And Oliver Glasner's asking him to do something different. He's the obvious choice at left wing-back. But he's got to learn that part of the game, isn't he? He's got to learn how to play the game going forward a bit more. And I think Glasner will try and coach that into him. And if he tries to coach it into him and he doesn't take on the instructions, if you like, and execute them, then he's not going to find himself in the team, is he? He's going to find another solution, is Glasner, going forward. But you're right. I think you touched on this last week, Paul, that the wing backs are arguably the most important positions in this system.
It is. I mean, it will allow our three forwards to play closer together, and it will hopefully, if they're progressing up the wings, it will keep the opposition fullbacks a bit further back as well. Cool.
Spurs had a half-hearted penalty claim in the first half when it was still 0-0. It was Munoz on Werner, went off for a corner. VAR checked it, but it was a quick check. It was soon over. And then before we scored, Son hit the post, and that was a warning sign, I thought. They got the ball in. It was Mitchell that was caught in possession, funny enough, quite a long way up the pitch. They fed the ball forward. Kulusevski, I think, got it, played it into Son. First time, right foot, left foot, I can't remember. Anyway, hit the post, and Johnson was beaten. So that would have been 1-0, but for the post. So let's come to our goal. Who won the ball for us in the first place to set the move up before Eze got fouled on the edge of the box? Anyone know that?
Eze, wasn't it?
No. He received the ball, but who won the ball in the first place?
Wasn't it?
No, it wasn't. It was actually Munoz, right? Okay, he intercepted. He came out the back four and he got his foot in, and he played the ball to Mateta, who then fed Eze in to go on the run. And it was the first time I love watching him play when he's fit, because he glides, doesn't he? glides forward. And the Tottenham player clearly thought, I've got to do something here because he's going to get a shot away, and brought him down. And I've actually got a photograph of the free kick that I took. So I didn't really see it go in. It wasn't that one. That's not my photograph. But I took another one, and it was like spot the ball competition because my ball was sort of over the heads of these players. And in Glasner's post-match interview, he was asked about this. And he said, "Oh, I want to congratulate my assistants for the goal." And the interviewer tried to get him to explain who it was, and he wouldn't. He wouldn't give anything away. But that was a routine clearly they'd worked on with the three players standing there and then moving out the way. And I just thought it was wonderful that we got a player of that quality. I've often looked at players like James Ward-Prowse and Kevin De Bruyne even, and think, I wish we had a player like that in red and blue, But now we've got one, haven't we? Tim, would you go along with that? We've got a player now. He's on all free kicks, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I've seen from most of the season when he's not playing is the quality of our delivery, dead ball delivery, has really not been very good. I mean, no goals from any corners. The number of times free kicks come in are wasted. So, to have him in the team fit is a godsend, really. Yeah,
good. And on a scale of 0 to 10, how good was the goal? How good was the strike? Ferg, give it a mark out of 10 for me.
Oh, it's got to be 10, isn't it? Yeah, it was quality. I mean, like you said, we had our players in the wall that kind of disrupted it. I do agree with some of the comments about the Spurs wall was probably set up not to its best. So as they took advantage of it, and it was a fantastic goal.
Yeah, really good. And you could see how pleased he was to score it. They did have a couple of chances. Anyone else, sorry, want to add anything about the goal before we move on from that? No? Yes? Okay. They did have another couple of chances before they scored. And I think I might have said to you, Paul, because we were standing next to each other, I think he's made the right call there, taking Eze off when he did. Come back.
Yeah, we said at half time he should take him off on the hour. Thankfully, he did wait an extra 5 minutes because otherwise he wouldn't have been on the pitch.
Yeah.
But we said, there's no point risking him, and we don't want to do what we've done with other players, bring them back too much. So, we've got players to come on for him. So, we were pleased to see that in the event.
Yeah, we're 1-0 then, and he takes him off. When Roy was manager a few weeks back, maybe even a month or so ago, he was criticised for saying that the players he brought off the bench didn't change the game. They were weaker than the starting 11. They weren't his exact words, but that's what he implied. And Glasner sort of implied something similar yesterday, didn't he? In terms of, well, I'm not about whether he didn't imply it, but that's what happened. The players that came off the bench just didn't have the same impact.
But he keeps picking the same. He keeps putting the same players on. He keeps putting Hughes on. I don't get that. We've got Ozo, we've got Hamada.
Well, Hamada came off the bench against Burnley. He didn't yesterday.
Yes.
He did against Burnley.
No, but Hughes seems to, when he's fit, he seems to be first choice. And don't get me wrong, he's a good player, but he concedes possession too much for me, and that's either giving the ball away, silly free kicks, missed passing. We just look at a weaker side, I think. So I was hoping that Glasner would spot that and maybe change it and maybe bring on an Ozo or a Hamada.
Okay, Paul.
I think half the problem is it goes back to what we were saying earlier. The team is not fit. The team this is why we get so many injuries, because we're playing. Once you get to 70 minutes, the team is clearly not Premier League standard fitness, and that's when muscles get tired. That's why we get muscle injuries and all these things. So when we're bringing players on at that sort of time to a team that's already fading and to a team that's already being pressured, so it's a lot harder for them to make an impact in that, because he's in his own half all the time, because we're not getting out balls. So they're coming into a aggressive pulling back team. I think partly down to the fitness.
Okay, and he's going to take time for him to address that, isn't it? And he's already said he's going to increase the intensity of the training to ensure that they're fitter and that they can play at that level for 95 or 100 minutes. He almost said those exact words, I think. But it's going to take time. We're not going to fix this overnight for sure. Their goals, I mean, they were mistakes, weren't they? I mean, Tottenham were in the ascendancy. You know, they were chasing the game. They were 1-0 down. They had to throw everything at it. They brought on attacking players, took off defensive midfielders, and the rest of it. But we made mistakes. There's no doubt about it. These are individual mistakes. First goal, Anderson. What was he thinking? Tim?
Yeah, I mean, people go on about Mitchell being out of form and this, that, and the other. But I'm sorry, for me, this season, Anderson has definitely been below par. I mean, there have been lots of games that we've watched together where he makes mistakes that cost goals, or he makes mistakes and he's lucky it hasn't cost a goal. So it's so frustrating when you've got a team that's worked that hard and doing so well for such a stupid... I mean, mistakes happen, but that kind of mistake led to the first goal was inexcusable. There is no excuse for that. Sometimes you just put your foot through the ball, you clear it to Rose Ed, and the team can reset. And yeah, I mean, that's just unforgivable.
Yeah, well, not quite unforgivable. That's harsh, but it's harsh. I find it hard to forgive him for it, but I think I'll forgive him for it ultimately. But he should have cleared his lines. You know, if he cleared his lines, then you're right. The team regroup and we can defend again. When we do defend, 2 back to 4 or whatever, then we look pretty solid. You know, we were solid for 70 something minutes. And they found it very hard to break us down, despite the odd chances and Johnston being in good form. So yeah, it was just a really hard one to take. And of course, the point I want to make, and then I come to you, Paul, is that first goal is the all important one.
Yeah.
As soon as they get that first goal, then the whole psychology of the game changes, doesn't it? Suddenly their tails are up. We've got one, we can get another now. And we're going, cool, if we get away with a point here, we'll be lucky, instead of thinking, cool, if we get away with 3 points, we'll be lucky. Paul.
Yeah, again, it's all down to the same thing. I mean, you're not fit, you get tired quicker, tired minds. You get what that leads to tired minds, more mistakes. First goal, as I say, Rose Ed, Anderson, Rose Ed, no messing about, put it out there. The second goal was just as bad. I mean, it was schoolboy stuff. They just throw it to their own player and he lobs it into the box and they head it in. I mean, that's the thing. 70 minutes in, the team are getting tired, the minds are getting tired, they're getting under pressure, and you let in schoolboy goals. And like you say, once they got that first goal, you could sense the stadium was up, everything was up. Yeah. And it was only going to be a matter of time before they got the next goal. And yeah, it was just it's a shame that we did that little capitulation again.
Yeah, Fergus.
No, I was just gonna throw it in there and say there's a question that, okay, we might have looked tired towards the end, but I just think some of the substitutions, I get the Eze one because we need to protect him. So you bring Francis on, but Hughes for Wharton, I just don't understand that. Wharton is a young kid; he can't be tired. And I just think we make these substitutions and then we psychologically, we just look like we're a weaker side. I think the team know it, and subconsciously we just drop back. We just invite pressure. And that last 20 minutes, you just know what's going to happen. It happened at Chelsea. It's happened again yesterday.
Okay.
It's just, I just think stick with the 11 you've got on the field unless someone's injured. And try and ride the game out. And if you have to make a substitution, make it for an injury, or if you're losing the game, bring on an impact player. But when you're 1-0 up and you're taking the likes of Wharton off, and I know Ayew went off because he was injured, so it was probably a bit of bad luck yesterday. But it's so frustrating because as soon as those substitutions happen, you look at the team and you're like, okay, we're in trouble now.
But you could argue, Fergus, could you not, that if he doesn't make the substitutions and we stay with the same 11 and they score a goal or two and we lose the game, you're going to say, why didn't he make some changes? Why didn't he bring a sub on?
Possibly. I would agree with that, Ian, apart from the fact that he's made all these changes before, not just Oliver, but Void before him, and it's never worked. It's never worked. And it's like doing the same thing and expecting a different result. It's crazy.
I think we're in agreement that the squad depth isn't enough and we need 2 or 3 more. And if you get 2 or 3 more, then you've got an opportunity to have changes and have the same quality on the pitch at any one time. But let's, Paul, you touched on the second goal. I think that was worse than the first one, really. Maddison had the freedom of Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. was no one near him. I think the nearest player that should have picked him up was Edouard. I think he was the one that was closest to him when I watched it back. And he crosses the ball in, and the guy just out jumps Joel Ward, so 2-1. And once we were behind, it was very, very difficult. We were never getting back in it, were we really? Not really. Third goal is almost irrelevant, but let's talk about it. Bruce, you've been very quiet. Do you want to talk us through their third goal very briefly? If
we give Son an opportunity to get hold of the ball and take a shot. I mean, it's as simple as that. I mean, we all know he's got pace, and once that ball was going over the top, you knew it was going to be a goal. He was going to, And as much as Sam had a fairly reasonable game, when you get Son in a position like that, he's going to put it in the back of the net.
Yeah, and Chris Richard, a bit flat-footed really when he caught out a bit. He was the one that was nearest to him. I'm not going to really knock him too much, but he could have dropped back another yard or two and potentially had a chance in the foot race.
But watching the replay, he almost gave up the race. Watching it, as soon as he was in a shooting position, he sort of stopped. He just thought, yeah, that's it. He's going to shoot, which is a worrying thing. But if we're starting with our best 11 players. Going back to the substitutions, it's difficult to make 3 substitutions to make an impact on a team that's got, 80% possession and are almost toying with us towards the end because they can see the fatigue in the team.
Yeah, there's some very valid points in the chat saying, listen, Glasner's been in charge for 2 games. Yeah, we get that. We're just sort of psychoanalyzing this a little bit too much, maybe overthinking it, but it's important that we talk about these goals and mistakes and maybe why it's happening. Paul?
I think the third goal, Chris Richards, he can't do anything at that point once Son's on the edge of the ball. You can't foul him, he'll be off. He can't. But I actually think the way the ball broke to Son, I think Anderson was actually fouled. And I think if that had been a Liverpool goal, the VAR would have gone back to that stage of play and probably ruled it out.
VAR checked it. VAR checked it.
They'll never give us that at Spurs.
No,
it was probably
it was a foul.
At that point, it doesn't, as you say, it doesn't matter, and it's one of those irrelevant goals because the game was gone. But it's that was the biggest frustration yesterday. As you say, we did well, we did better than we normally do there, and we completed our own downfall with those 2 silly mistakes. That was the big frustration.
Okay, so a positive from yesterday's game, Paul, for you.
That we played better. We played well for 70 minutes. We contained them and we showed what we can be. Once the new manager settles in, once he gets the new fitness regime into things, that's why Spurs can break us down. We were fitter. We were stopping their play. But yeah, once it sort of unravelled, they came into it. But in terms of that, it was good to see Munoz going forward again. I think he's going to be a good signing for us. Walton again, I thought did well before he went off. I think there's some good signs there. Obviously, it's going to take time. But our big problem still will be putting the ball in the net, which is why Elise is going to be so huge. We score goals when he's in the team, Menezes. When he's not there, as you say, Ayew, great player, does the job, that is not number-wise prolific, doesn't get goals. Mateta, okay, he's been playing well recently and he holds the ball up. But until we have that out ball and the guy who can score a goal out of nothing, it's going to be trying to grind games
Like Phil Foden's first goal this afternoon. Out of nothing, wasn't it?
Yeah, Rashford's. I mean, as I say, we're not going to get players like that. But, I think it puts into perspective. Last week against Burnley, obviously, there was a lot of hype and all that. We play a better team. We didn't create much up front. But again, I hold a lot of stock in Michael Elise will help us do that. We are still under strength up front. And hopefully, the sooner he's back, which will probably be after the international break by the sound of it, we'll get to see it would be nice to see our full team under Oliver Glasner after 3 or 4 weeks with them.
Yeah, it would. And talking to Michael Elise, we ought to mention, and congratulations to Michael Elise for winning the London Goal of the Season competition. The season's not even over yet, so I'm not sure about these awards, but he won it for his strike away at Luton. Shame it was on the losing side that day, but it was some strike. And he was pictured in we haven't got a picture because we didn't rehearse this, but in a nice flash jacket with his trophy. So well done, Michael Elise. Good
that
stuff.
Was like Ange Postecoglou winning London Manager of the Year when he's only been manager for like 4 months. Didn't quite get that one.
Very good. Very good. Right, I'm going to quickly go through the loan watch and then I'm going to come to you, Tim, and you, Bruce, to just give us a brief update on the fan advisory board. So loan watch, how have our loan out players done this weekend? David Boateng, he came off the bench after 67 minutes for Dundee in a 2-1 away defeat at Hibernian. Killian Phillips, Neil Warnock didn't give him any time at all. He was on the bench for the whole of Aberdeen's 2-0 loss at Kilmarnock. Owen Goodman, of course, plays in goal for Colchester United and conceded once in a 1-1 draw. Kofi Barmer was not part of the Wimbledon squad, but John Kamani-Gordon came off the bench in the 79th minute in a 1-0 loss at Doncaster. Sean Grehan stayed on the bench for Carlisle. Adibomi, I can't say his name, sorry, played for 57 minutes for Burton Albion in a 2-0 defeat. And Adaramola played for 77 minutes for Texters Molenbeek. So that brings you up to date with all our loan players out at the moment. And as I've said before, I'm surprised they don't get full 90 minutes. If they're that good, they should be playing 90 minutes for the likes of Wimbledon and others. So there we go. And it would be wrong of us not to mention the fact that Joel Ward clocked up a significant landmark yesterday with his 300th Premier League appearance. So congratulations to Joel Ward. He really is a Palace legend, and we're very grateful to him for everything he's done. Most of those games were with Palace, but as you can see there, a very few, single-digit number. I think that's a 3 at the bottom for Portsmouth in the Premier League. So there we are. Well done, Joel Ward. Okay, so Tim and Bruce, you're both on the fan advisory board. I know you can't reveal all your secrets for your meetings that you've had and all the rest of it. And there's a limited amount you can share with us. But tell us, first of all, your experience so far. How many people are involved? How many meetings have you had and where have you met and that kind of thing? I'll come to Tim first and then you, Bruce.
So we had our second meeting with the club officials this week at Spurs at SE25. It's quite weird going there when there's nobody else. You know, it's a bit of like, the lights off and that. It's quite but yeah, so that was interesting. I'm sure I'll let Bruce fill in with what was discussed if he wants to, but it's quite enlightening when you kind of get a bit more of the facts and what's really going on, not what you see on social media or reported in the press. So Bruce, over to you.
Again, I won't be too specific, but what I can say is that the club want to focus on big items, big ticket items. They're not fussed about, the small things. They want to make an impact and they want to get things right. And they're very open. We had some information about the new stand and the ticketing, what's going to happen. So the club make the fab,
Bruce, you've frozen, my friend. You've frozen there.
Something can be done. And
okay, sorry, Bruce. We didn't get all of that. You froze. No, you're not back. You're frozen.
Okay.
We got some of it, but not all of it. But we did get the fact that you said they want to concentrate on big ticket items and not the small stuff. Interesting you mentioned ticketing, because we know that's not very good, Paul, don't we? The box office is...
Lot to be desired on that front, yeah.
Yeah, so they're going to make some big improvements there. So, Tim, is this mainly sort of match day experience they want to improve for the fans, do you think?
I think it's the whole gamut of it, to be fair. Yes, the match day experience. They want to improve communication. They want to know what people want, how they can improve things. It's kind of one of the things we are doing is on the company website, on the club website, there's a fab page now. That's being edited slightly, and it's early doors. It's never been done before. So we are looking to improve it, and all the information that we have at meetings, the summary of what's discussed will get put up regularly up on this page. A contact email address for people to contact us. What I would also say, just following on from what Bruce said, it is big ticket stuff, strategic. But please do let us know if there are issues like you have on the day, We have several WhatsApp groups that we're members of that we can pass information to get things sorted. And to be fair, that's been done a few times already, and they've got onto it pretty quickly and got things sorted. So that's about it, really.
And are you confident, do you think, Tim, that this is actually going to make a difference to the supporters longer term?
I'm confident it will do. The club seem open to it. I mean, Bruce and I have had separate discussions about this, and there are some things in the pipeline which should go a long way to improving the information that comes out from the club to the fans and the type of information, and a lot more explanatory, if you know what I mean, to sort of where the club is going. We can't really say too much at the moment, but it's onerous on us as well to make sure that we do hold the club accountable, and that we're not just going, yes, Steve, no, Steve, 3 bags, full Steve. So that's on us. But the other thing is, we do want people to understand this is going to take a little while to get up and running and to get where we want it to be. We are all voluntary. It is all off our own back. You know, they don't get paid. We don't get anything from it. So, I mean, there have been a few comments on social media and that have been quite pointed, shall I say. And some of the other members have had, I wouldn't say abuse, but have had some unpleasant things. And it's like,
okay,
there's no need for it, really.
No, well, you won't get unpleasant stuff on this show. There's a few questions going through in the chat. When's the new stand starting, Tim? What's the point of it if you can't tell us? Well, I think there's to be some confidentiality. But I'm just sensing a little bit of feedback on this call just now. Is this Bruce's line? Is it? Am I getting that? Nigel, if you can hear us, Bruce, can you hear me?
Yeah, let me try and mute.
Yeah, it's still there. Don't worry. Okay. He's gone. Sorry. It's not Bruce. It's somebody else. Okay. So mute yourself maybe if you're not talking, and we'll see what happens. Tim's gone now as well. This is hard to manage, isn't it? Oh, he's back. Right. So, So, look, guys, thank you for volunteering with the Fan Advisory Board. We look forward to updates in the future. And, we do hope, of course, as supporters, that it will make a difference to all of us long term, and that improves the match day experience, it improves the facilities around Sellers Park, and that we can all benefit from it. So good on you for volunteering.
We just need a bit of time here. This is new. It's not a tick box exercise. Okay. We need to work, closer with the club. We know that, and relationships are getting better and better.
Yeah, Bruce, I'm conscious I haven't asked you about the DSA, but we've got Lindsay on next week. So we'll pick that up with her next week. Is that all right? I'll take that as an affirmative.
She's a lot more better to look at and listen to than I am, I can assure you.
Well, I wasn't going to say that, but yeah. Very good. Right, okay. Let me talk about other teams since our last show, and then we'll go on and look at some predictions going forward. So the under-21s, they've had some success. They beat Wolves 3-0 in the Premier League International Cup. I'm not sure why it's international between Wolves and Palace, but there we are. They then beat Leicester City 3-2 in the Premier League Cup. And I watched some of this game online, and it was interesting. Poor old Joe Whitworth, he had a bit of a mare with their second goal. That's the thing that stuck in my mind. The under-18s, they got stuffed 5-0 at Manchester United. We'll move on swiftly from that one. And then the women's game, sadly, was postponed. They didn't play today against Birmingham City because the playing conditions at Sutton were not suitable. I think it was a waterlogged pitch. But there we are. So that brings you up to date on the other teams around Crystal Palace Football Club. We're going to move into looking ahead at the games that are coming up. So if we can get that up on the screen. Now, Paul, I know you've got a view on this because we talked about it pre-show. Talk us through your thoughts about these next 6 games.
I mean, basically, we were saying earlier, obviously, yesterday we consider that pretty much a free hit due to past performances there and the fact that Spurs are chasing European places. You're never really going to go there expecting points. But realistically, the next 2 away games, the next 3 games, you can get a decent points haul. You could almost put yourself safe. If we could get 7 points out of those 3 games, we're on 35, and you can't see 3 teams getting to that. So, and Forest and Bournemouth basically are points potential games. I think Luton is crucial. Obviously, they're probably one of the teams trying to hunt us down. If we can put another 3 points between us and them, then that could really flatten them as well. So, crucial game next Saturday. Obviously, then we've got the international break. So we've got with the Newcastle game being off, manager's got 3 weeks to work with the team. So yeah, hopefully we can go into the Forest and Bournemouth games fresh, new ideas, a bit fitter maybe, and yeah, start seeing some of the new systems in place.
Yeah, interesting that we've got this 3-week gap after Luton because Newcastle is still in the FA Cup and because it's the international break. Do we think that's going to help us or hinder us? Thoughts, please, Fergus. Help or hinder?
I think it'll help. I think it'll give those players that are probably carrying knocks or are due back from injury, it'll give them time. And it'll give Oliver Glasner time to implement some of his ideas, some of his tactics, work on set pieces, work on fitness. Definitely not a hindrance, I don't think.
Okay.
I think it actually protects him in a way. Because, you know, if we had a couple of games coming up and we didn't do so well, we drew or lost, you know, then all of a sudden the pressure's on him.
Yeah, he's not going to lose his job, is he? But, you know, he's...
But you know what it's like. It's, you know...
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think on balance, I think it will help us. But it's an interesting scenario, isn't it, that we get these 3 games and he has a 3-week break. And then they come thick and fast, of course, because we play Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday lunchtime. So, you know, that's you know, in 8 days, we play 3 games then. And, 2 of them are away from home as well. So it's going to be an interesting time. People are putting comments in the chat, how many points we're going to get. I'm not going to ask you guys how many points you think we'll get from those games. But I will ask you for your prediction against Luton Town next Saturday. Let me come to you first, Bruce. What's the score going to be next Saturday, mate?
I think we're going to nick a small 1-0 victory.
1-0 for you. Tim?
2-0.
2-0. Fergus?
Do you need to ask him?
No, I don't need to ask it. 2-1. Okay. And Paul?
Yeah, I don't think we'll keep a clean sheet against them. They do seem to score goals, Luton, but so I'm going to go with Fergus. I think 2-1.
2-1. And I reckon there might be more goals. I think I'm going to go 3-2. I think there'll be goals aplenty. I think they're decent, Luton. They really are. But, you know, they concede, but they can score. And they proved that yesterday against the Villa. You know, they were 2-0 down. And it could have been out of sight, Villa, at half-time for the highlights I saw. Only Watkins in my fantasy team. I was watching that thinking he could have had so many more points. I was just getting greedy. But they weren't out of sight. It was only 2-0 and they got back in it, you know, 2 each. And we need to have that tenacity to keep going. And I think player for player, we're better than them. I think, you know, if we match up against them, we're better than them. With the side we had out yesterday, and we played like we just played yesterday and last Saturday, then we've got every chance of winning the game. And you'll agree with me that we're going to win. So let's hope we do, for goodness sake, because you know it's a long time to mull over a defeat if we get beat. You know that's not good. So I wouldn't say it's quite a must win, but for me it's a must not lose. We must not lose it.
With 2 away games and Liverpool and City after that in the next 4, you don't want to be going into that in the defeat.
No, absolutely. And you know, City, you know, I always enjoy playing the big clubs. That's why you're in the Premier League for, to play these big teams. And I think on our day we can give teams a game, as we proved yesterday at Tottenham. And we've matched other sides. I think we quite enjoy playing Man City, especially up there. Not so much at Selhurst, but I was watching the game today, and that Vicente Guaita got a shout out, the last goalkeeper to keep a clean sheet at the Etihad in the Premier League. And we were there that day. It was a fantastic afternoon. So we got formally, and we've beaten Liverpool as well. Of course, you know we've always given them a good game. It's been fairly tight in the last few times we've played them. So, there's every chance we can nick a draw maybe against those top sides who will be really
But
wanting to.
Don't the refs let Liverpool play until they score the winner? That's normally what happens.
Usually, yeah.
So that could be a long game.
Be nice to get one of those younger refs. That guy last week was he called Lewis Smith? Is that his name? Was that right?
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, I thought he had a good game. He had a good game. And I went up on the train yesterday with a Fulham fan who was going up to the Fulham Brighton game. Oh, I know quite well. And he was saying that his first game was a Fulham game, and he thought he played well in their match as well. He wasn't too complimentary about the female ref that they had the week before that or something. But,
and we were discussing this yesterday, and as I say, he did do well against Burnley, but he also we probably slightly blinded because he kept one of our players on who he could well have sent off. So
that's true. It's very true.
All which way you look at it.
Very true. And if that's against Liverpool or Man City, do those players stay on the pitch? Adam Walton, that second yellow coming, does he stay on the pitch? So. We got away with one there, I think, with him on his first start at Selhurst, I think, wasn't it? Oh, have I got that right? Anyway, all good. So, guys, listen, thanks for joining us tonight. Thanks to everyone in the chat for coming on. As Nick said at the top of the show, it's not a show without you guys, so we really appreciate you joining us. And enjoy the afternoon at Selhurst next Saturday. I will if we win. So, thanks again, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Good night, all.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, guys.